Hey, all right, let's do it. I found Freddie Coleman's theme song that he uses to let the good times roll. That's what we're gonna bump into him with. So that'll be fun.
Nice. Happy Hump Day, everybody. Welcome to the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Glad to have you with us once again. A show today and every day brought to you by Big Willie's at 1717 South Main. Craft food menu with lunch specials every single day. Craft cocktail menu for those of you who take your libations seriously. Cold beers on draft. And of course, the number one pool hall in Utah as well. A perfect place to go down and watch the Minnesota Wild Colorado Avalanche Stanley Cup playoff game tonight. That'll be a 6 p.m. puck drop. So get down there. Maybe hockey's not your thing. You haven't jumped on the bandwagon just yet. No problem. NBA basketball on as well. Cle- Oh, hey, you can listen to it here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. And of course, you can watch it down at Big Willie's. Tell them OC sent you. Great place to take in a game, great place to shoot some pool, great place just to go down, have dinner in a relaxed environment. They take great care of us, they'll take great care of you as well. Pardon me. All right. So, midweek, we've got a fun one lined up for you today. Freddie Coleman is going to join us. Freddie's one of the best voices in the entire sports radio game, and we'll have a lot to discuss with him. The NBA playoffs, the NFL schedule release coming up, the international games being leaked out there as the NFL really is trying to push its product beyond the American borders, beyond the North American borders. It's big in Mexico, it's big in Canada, but man, there's a very concerted effort with games all over the planet now for the NFL to try to grow its global footprint. And I'm super curious to know if it can ever happen because um, we've I think we've done a really good job in Utah adopting hockey, loving hockey, or at least learning to love hockey. Um, Figuring out how to speak the language of hockey gradually, all that stuff. Most of us didn't grow up with hockey, at least not for our entire childhoods. I lived my early childhood in Minnesota where hockey is religion. And then when I moved to Utah, it just kind of goes by the wayside, right? But it's been part of our sports landscape to some degree. You've had some vague awareness. You go back far enough, and remember that cool, James, you're too young for this, but there was a sports cartoon, a Saturday morning cartoon for a brief and blessed period that had Michael Jordan and Bo Jackson and Wayne Gretzky as like sports superheroes. We had video games all throughout our childhood that reinforced our interest and our love of sports, even if we didn't play those sports. NHL 94 might be the best ever sports console game. Um, it didn't have to be something you did. You didn't have to go skate out on the pond to have something of a NHL awareness. The NFL is, well, American football, and most importantly, the NFL, for this conversation at least, is a completely foreign concept to countries that don't have an infrastructure of youth football, that don't have high school football, that don't have college football. It's similar to us with rugby. It's similar to us with cricket. It's similar. I mean, what other sports are there? Like cycling, bike racing, Tour de France. We know what that is. You don't grow up with it necessarily. It's huge in European countries. Bike races every weekend, amateur circuits, people actually doing it. The NFL and by extension, college football, the CFL is a new product for a massive part of the globe. It's a curiosity. It is Australian rules football. It is hurling, which is a Irish sport that most of you probably haven't even ever heard of or seen one lick of. At best, it's lacrosse, which has grown rapidly in the United States, but for a long time was just kind of an East Coast, Southeast, and Northeast sort of thing.
Yeah, I think Utah is still the only school, is the farthest west school in the country that has a lacrosse program. There might have been others that came up, but when the lacrosse program got started, it was the farthest west in the U.S. It was the only one besides Denver, west of the Rockies. So yeah, definitely more of an East Coast thing, and it's spread a lot more as time has gone on.
Let's see here. Stanford women have a good lacrosse team now. But yeah, everything else is these. I'm looking at the division. There's club teams all over the place. MCLA is the name of the organization that handles the club sports. So there's like a bunch of California schools that have those. But as far as men's programs go, Utah, I think, is the furthest west, the D1 programs. Oregon and Stanford have D1 programs for women, and a lot of D2, D3 programs in California out in the smaller schools, University of Redlands, Pomona College, Pacific University, this kind of thing. Interestingly enough, California, Utah, Colorado are now considered recruiting hotbeds, but most of the time D1 schools are on the East Coast. So it's like, yeah, wow, congratulations. You got invited to go play lacrosse at North Carolina. You got to be part of Wake Forest. Syracuse wants you to play lacrosse out on the East Coast. It's the Western programs appear not to be much of a destination as of yet. But I don't want to get too far away from the original point here, or the original premise of being like, we're still at a point in an entertainment and sports saturation market where, I mean, I don't care where you go on the planet. I spend a lot of time traveling, as plenty of you listeners suffer through with me. And I appreciate you still listening, even though, my other job takes me away from the show sometimes. When you go and you're staying at a hotel in Northern Ireland, or you're in Spain, and you flip on the television, mostly out of habit, and you scroll to whatever the sports channel is, right? There's soccer on all the time. If you can't find soccer, you can find, depending on where you are in the world, you can find some hockey in Europe. You can find track and field. The aforementioned cycling is a lot bigger. You'll find volleyball contests. And of course, these places are well populated with Amazon Prime, with Netflix, with movie theaters, with actual theaters, right? The entertainment world is saturated with options, and the NFL right now is trying to add another complicated and expensive one to an already crowded market in Paris, Madrid, Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Berlin, all these places that have not yet developed the same kind of appetite for it that, of course, American cities have, or even Canadian cities have, or even Mexican cities have. And the growth strategy is a fascinating one because it's not basketball and it's not soccer. American football, second, I think only to hockey, requires a lot of lifting just to get started. Now, flag football is a different thing. Touch football is a different thing. But good old-fashioned American gridiron tackle football requires not only equipment, you need a goal standard, right? You need uprights, which are expensive and not easy to find. Now, in a pinch, rugby ones work well, okay, if we're talking about expansion in Europe. But also, you kind of need coaching. And as wonderful as the internet is now and how you can go find all you need on YouTube, you kind of need someone who can at least give you more than just the rudimentary understanding of the rule set, right? You need like an introductory playbook. You need an introductory passing route tree. You can figure out tackling. You can figure out, well, we want to get across this line. You know, kids especially are learning games, and you can say, you got to make it 10 yards, and they're going to be like, what's 10 yards? Oh, well, just call it 10 meters, okay? You got to get 10 meters for the first down, and like they'll pick that kind of stuff up, and maybe they'll innovate quickly, and as soon as you give them the basic rule set, you can pass the ball forward. You can't let the big fat guys carry the ball. You got to make sure that the guy on the end of the line of scrimmage is covered. There's a complicated rule set, as all of you know, right? And we've just taken it for granted that this is something that, you know, the world is going to, or that we adopt, that we learn almost through osmosis, through a long process in life. Or maybe you get signed up for flag football, then maybe you convince your parents, I want to play tackle football as well when you're 11 years old. The NFL is taking on what I think is perhaps the most ambitious thing that we have ever seen in sports marketing by trying to sell its game, sell its product, sell its merchandise to a world that doesn't have a frame of reference for it. And the NFL has enough money to do this. Like, I love rugby. If you try to get the Australian rugby leagues or the South African professional rugby leagues or even the European professional rugby leagues to come over here and stage these one-off tours and these one-off things and just like bootstraps a fan base in the United States, they wouldn't be able to afford it. They do those things, right? They do those test matches. They do those exhibitions in the United States. The All Blacks come play a couple of games in the United States for partially because diaspora from all of these other nations to the United States means there are people in the fan base that live in the U.S., but also because, you know, we're a populated enough country that you can, of the 400 million people that live here, you can grab 50,000 to come to Soldier Field to watch South Africa play against New Zealand in a rugby contest, right? To establish yearly multiple visits, international tours, I just don't think that there's any other league out there that can force itself into markets beyond these American sports leagues. And it's fascinating to watch the NFL try to do it. They've been telling us for over a decade now, hey, we might end up expanding internationally and doing like a European franchise. We've got a couple of owners overseas now. The Jacksonville guy, obviously, Khan he's half a Londoner, right? So maybe he could build something in London but then you got to fight with the rest of the owners, the rest of the league, the collective bargaining. Hey, we don't want to travel that much. We don't want to have to fly across the pond. I think it's awesome. I think the idea is awesome. I think the players would get, you know, a little cultural enrichment out of it and actually could be an asset to the league and certainly would grow the game a lot more if you had a regular weekly or semi-weekly presence every football season over on that side of the Atlantic Ocean. But what other sports league can do this? The NBA did it almost by accident with the Dream Team. But again, that's a sport that requires so much less to get started in. Like soccer is the easiest. Basketball is the second easiest. Maybe baseball's the second easiest. But the NFL releasing an international slate of games telling you that your San Francisco 49ers are going to be playing in Australia. The Steelers and the Saints are like, yeah, we're playing in Paris. How many Steelers and Saints fans are in Paris right now? Well, probably not a lot. We've gone over the markets that the NFL teams are allowed to market to, and some of them make geographical sense, cultural sense, whatever. Some of them you're just like, why does the Jacksonville team have exclusive rights to market in Turkey or whatever it was? Niners, Rams in Melbourne, Ravens, Cowboys in Rio. And by the way, these are not exhibition games. These are regular season games. These are week 1, week 3, Cincinnati, Atlanta, week 9 in Madrid, Colts, Commanders in London, Eagles, Jags in London, Texans, Jags in London. The Jags are staying week 5 and 6 across the pond. Steelers, Saints in Paris, week 7. The aforementioned Bengals, Falcons matchup, week 9. Patriots, Lions in Munich, Vikings and Niners in Mexico City. So week 1 and week 11 for my Niners are international games. And as we await the official 270-plus game NFL schedule being released, I think tomorrow, right? They're leaking out. They're giving you the little tidbits of these international games. And there's no hardcore point to make here. There's nothing to really drive home. We're already football fans. We're going to remain football fans. Even if you're a season ticket holder for one of these teams and they take a home game away from you, you're not going to cancel your season tickets. Or if you do, they're going to sell the next day to somebody else anyway. It is our thing. It is our favorite sport. It is our national pastime now. I'm still not convinced, despite the massive effort the NFL is making, that it's ever going to really, truly catch on the way they wanted to in these international markets. James, am I underestimating Roger Goodell and what the NFL can do here?
I actually agree with you, though. They probably make enough money where they go, yeah, why wouldn't we do this? And that's what's going to drive this. But it's not. I don't know that the game is going to grow to the point where you're finding, prospects in Germany the way that you do, like the NBA does, and obviously soccer is done for a very long time for many of the reasons you stated. My feeling has always been, even though everywhere you go in North America, pretty much, certainly in the U.S. and Canada, people know the NFL. People are fans of the NFL, whether there's a team in your market or not. Salt Lake City is an obvious example of that. I would love for at least the preseason games to have places like here in Salt Lake City, places in Canada. No, there's never any NFL game in Canada. It surprises me, baffles me. They have their own. They have the CFL, which is really popular up there. Of course they're going to come out for an NFL game. I would love for preseason games instead of less of these international games and more of these preseason games where they go around to, and you've mentioned the draft, go around to cities in North America, primarily the United States, but like I said, Canada would be great. It would be a great thing too, where they go, okay, we're bringing the NFL to you. I don't care if you feel like you've maxed out on that. Giving people hockey has done they have so much faith in, hey, if you go to a hockey game, you're going to fall in love with the game. I don't know why the NFL feels like they don't want to give those experiences to yeah, maybe they're already fans here in Salt Lake City, in Vancouver, in Canada, but like those fans, many of those fans have never been to an NFL game. Do you know how much more invested and how much more they might spend if you gave them a chance to have an NFL game, even if it's just preseason, or have the NFL draft in their town? Like I don't know why they don't do more of that.
Well, we talked about this plenty before. There's the draft itself. Like they're going to check the boxes of visiting all the NFL cities and having the draft there, and then they're either going to restart that rotation, or if they're smart, they should bring it to the fringe markets, the markets where they have a lot of fans, where there's an allegiance to whatever assortment of teams, like in Salt Lake City, like in Boise, Idaho, like in whatever, Iowa City, where you don't have your own team necessarily, but you are fans. And I think, James, the answer to your question, which is a good one, like why not an NFL game at Rice-Eccles Stadium or LaBelle Edwards Stadium? I think the answer to that question is because they know that they're already getting money from those people, right? Those people already have.
Yeah, they're going after the
they already have the Las
international
Vegas Raiders
money.
Jerseys. They have the Denver Broncos jerseys. They're already paying for the NFL Red Zone package, and they're looking for new customers, which that's a debatable business strategy all the time. Do you sacrifice the needs and the wants of your current customers in order to get new ones instead? The money that you could spend satisfying your current recurring customers, is that better spent on trying to tap into a new market? Well, the NFL has determined that yes, it's worth their investment to go try to tap into a new market and try to sell jerseys for 100 Great Britain pounds sterling or whatever, or for 200 euros or whatever they're charging over there, than to make sure that James Peterson is renewing his jersey collection in Salt Lake City. It's the only explanation I can come up with. But I mean, we're sitting here being armchair marketers and armchair decision makers, and I'm sure that they have the smartest, the brightest, the best minds on the accounting problems in the NFL to solve these problems, or to theorize on what would make more sense for them. But I can't help but look at every time we see and I love the idea of an international game. At one point, I'm going to go to an NFL international game. It's going to be there when I'm already in town somewhere for the PFL or whatever, and I'm just going to buy a ticket and I'm going to go and I'm going to see what it's like, and I'm going to love it. And the same way I would love an NFL game on home soil. But every time I see it, I look at it and I say, this is not the same as hockey, basketball, even baseball. This is our uniquely American sport that we are, in a lot of ways, force-feeding to an international market. And some of it is for expats, right? Some of it is for populations of Americans that have gone over and worked in other places. But that's not the target that you're trying to increase your market share on. They're trying to get Germans to like NFL football. They're trying to get Brazilians to like NFL football. They're, I believe, recognizing an opportunity and saying, you know what? We've figured out in the United States that people actually will watch like 3 or 4 sports, depending on the seasons, not competing with one another. People will, buy their football tickets, and then maybe they don't buy basketball tickets also, but they'll buy basketball television packages. They'll buy basketball jerseys. They'll buy basketball gear. So we can get them on that. And then maybe those people also, we've done the market research, and they'll also adopt a baseball team in the spring. Or maybe some of them are even jumping on this UFL bandwagon in the spring. And these people have a summer sports interest as well. Maybe that's what the NFL's done. And they're looking at it and saying, hey, you know what? Brazil, they really love soccer. They really love volleyball. What they don't have is a third sport to attach them to, or a fourth sport to attach their money to. And that's what they're out for. And it's it's an experiment that they have enough money to fund, maybe until it is too big to fail, which makes the NFL unique. If you're a fledgling league, I work for a fledgling league, okay? If you're a fledgling league and you're trying to do this, you're trying to grassroots, sometimes you have to go where there is not competition. Sometimes you have to go where there's a play where, like in the PFL's case, our greatest success is found from a ticket sales perspective, from a viewership perspective, when we do an event where the UFC either has never been or hasn't been in a very long time. Right? That is a market starved for something. But again, those are people who already are martial arts fans, are already combat sports fans, mixed martial arts fans. Those are people that already have like some awareness of the product. With football, it is a totally unique business model because in most cases, go find a game in Munich, a game in London, a game in Dublin. You're trying to fill that stadium at least halfway with people who don't know what they're watching, with people who are just, as they're watching it, learning what's going on. It's as bold of a strategy as you're going to find in sports. It's not dissimilar from which is another thing that the NFL does, where they just take big body, strong guys, they take potential, and they try to turn it into a finished product that actually makes sense from a competitive standpoint. On the flip side of this coin, the NFL looks at every human being or every sports fan at least, as a potential NFL fan. The same way they look at everyone who's 6'5" and 270 plus pounds as a potential NFL player. They're like, yeah, well, that guy, he only likes Serie A Italian soccer. But if we give him enough NFL, he's going to become an NFL fan. I am not convinced of that. The NFL is. It's a wild belief in your own product, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I'm not convinced of that either, OC, but I am convinced that they probably make enough money from American tourists going to these games, or as you said, expats who live in these countries or neighboring countries, that they, and then the rest of the newer fans who like, oh, this is a curiosity for me. I've heard about this, but now it's here. I might as well go. I'm convinced they make enough money that they're not going to stop doing it, and they're going to continue to add more. I don't think that they'll ever have franchises outside of North America, but I mean, crazier things have happened in my lifetime in sports. So who knows?
How many cricket matches, James, would you have to have? Like, I'm talking like Pakistan versus West Indies, like big time cricket. Okay. How many of those would have to take place at America First Field, which is the wrong shape, so you probably couldn't do it there, but bear with me on the hypothetical here.
At whatever stadium you can turn into a cricket field.
Before you were finally like, you know what, I actually really like this, and now I'm like a real fan. It's not just a carnival for me. It's not just a curiosity for me. Like, I think I have to go to like 20 cricket matches.
I think I'd have to do at least that many, maybe even a lot more. Like, yeah, but cricket's
that's where the NFL is in a different position than like cricket. Cricket couldn't do that. Okay. No. Cricket couldn't say, you know what?
I doubt they sell enough tickets or merchandise. NFL is selling all of that when they go to Munich.
And they can almost fake it until they make it.
Yeah.
Which is something that and Live Golf tried to do this and realized they can't. And they spent $5 billion trying to do it, trying to innovate, trying to reintroduce, trying to completely change the structure of professional golf. They spent $5 billion and it didn't work. The NFL isn't going to spend $5 billion and have it fail. They might spend $5 billion, though, before it's truly the success that they want it to be. But they're one of the only – they might be the only sports league outside of like Premiership soccer that even could do it. Fascinating stuff. We'll give you the full rundown on the NFL schedule and the total release as it happens. Lots to get to on the show today. Some of it good news, some of it not so good news. We'll touch on some of that when we get to the Daily Dump. Carlos Mauricio Ramirez is an Apple TV English and Spanish play-by-play man, Olympic studio host over on Telemundo, works with the Niners, the Giants, the A's pre- and post-game. He's an analyst at NBC Sports Bay Area. We're going to talk some soccer. We're going to talk some upcoming World Cup. And he's a Niners guy, so we're going to talk my Niners as well. You'll have to bear with me on that. He's our first guest, and it's Freddie Coleman and Adrian Denny. We're rolling on a Wednesday. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in for the first time, Carlos Mauricio Ramirez. You can find him on Apple TV doing MLS play-by-play, English and Spanish. Olympic studio host over at Telemundo, 49ers, Giants, A's, analyst for NBC Sports Bay Area. If I have my way, we'll be talking with Carlos quite a bit, especially when we get into football season. Carlos, welcome to the show for the first time. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Happy to do it. And yes, whenever the 49ers are back, I will be happy to join you guys. So my pleasure.
We'll get to the 49ers here in just a second. But if I'm doing my job the right way, RSL Houston Dynamo tonight at America First Field, World Cup soccer coming right around the corner. We got to dive into some of this a little bit. Let's start with RSL and a strong start to their MLS season. How much have you seen of RSL, and are you a believer so far that this is a team that can actually contend for a cup this year?
I've called a couple of games, and I think there's enough there for them with a move or two, with an addition or two, to be a really dangerous team in the Western Conference. And consistency is a big word. I think this team, which is, in my estimation, coached by one of the better coaches in the league in Pablo Mastroeni. It's a new system with three in the back. The Gozo experiment as a wingback has convinced some. There's some others who don't like it as much. I personally like it. If we see the Gozo version of what we saw against Portland a couple of weeks ago, I was in Salt Lake calling that game for Apple. So I love the base. I do think the biggest thing, or if I were to, if I were to give Real Salt Lake fans a wish, or if I think Pablo Mastroeni was submitted to a lie detector and you would ask him, what would you like or what did you need for this team? I would think he would say a 9, a proper goal-scoring 9. Sergi Solans has done a great job in terms of habilitating passes, pivoting, connecting. Olatunji is a physical specimen in the best of ways. He's a freak. He's a really athletic player. But they're not bona fide goal scorers, or at least they haven't been this season. And when you have the production of Diego Luna and Xavier Gozo and Guilherme behind a proper 9, with experience in Caliscan being what they are in the midfield, that's what I think will now separate Real Salt Lake from the Vancouvers, the LAFCs, the Seattles, and even the San Jose's of the world. So I do see there's enough there. If they go out in the winter or the World Cup break and sign a proper 9, that to me changes everything for Real Salt Lake.
You just mentioned the World Cup break, and it's something that we've been kind of like, I've been laying it out. I've been preparing. We have adopted. We are a soccer market here now in Salt Lake City. A lot of people were bummed, myself included, although it's understandable that not a host city for the North American World Cup, but a lot of people have already made their travel plans. I've spent, I think, too many segments probably talking about transportation and ticket prices for the premier sporting event every 4 years in the world. But one of the big questions people have is, will Real Salt Lake have any representation on the international ultimate stage? Will the Moon Man be on the U.S. men's national team when the deadline comes in 3 weeks?
I think he will. I think he should. When you look at that roster and when you dice it up, there's no player that does what Diego Luna can do in the sense of tempo management, connection with forwards, being able to change the rhythm and the pace of a soccer match. Pulisic can do what he can do, no one else can do as well inside the microcosm of Team USA. But what Diego Luna brings is he might not be going back to the physical specimen or the physical freak that some players are at this stage. He might not be that. What he is, though, is he is the conductor of a midfield. He can step on it. He can accelerate. He can come from behind, connect the dots with either Musa or Balogun or Pulisic or whoever you want to put on the top. And I understand you need some muscle behind him with McKenzie. And that'll happen, right? With Weston McKennie, that'll happen. But I do. My expectation is that Diego Luna, when it's all said and done, will be picked between the 26 players that Pochettino will bring to the World Cup.
I feel like that would be enough reason for the casual fans, like the kind of the people on the bubble, so to speak, to tune in a little extra. Maybe add a little more intrigue to the maybe push someone over the hump on, like, all right, I am going to travel to San Francisco, Houston, or LA to go watch a U.S. men's national team game. And look, you've been closer to this than I have. Do you get a sense, and we've seen all the articles, we've seen some rollback in prices, transportation, there was like the bus ticket was going to cost $150. People got mad about it, so they've reduced the cost on that kind of thing. Is FIFA and the World Cup sort of community, are they responding the right way to some of the concerns on making this thing accessible to fans, not just North American fans, but the fans that are making the trip from Europe, from Africa, from South America to try to enjoy this once in every 4 years event?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that is the main concern with prices is how do we afford this? I mean, how do we get there? I mean, not just the visa and all those issues that are ingrained with going to the United States if you're a foreign citizen or if you're just a tourist, which are a concern. But even when the government gets involved and you have U.S. lawmakers seeking transparency, from ticketing, that's an issue in and of itself. So we've heard members of Congress responding to the tickets for the World Cup. So that is an issue. Most of the games, or at least tickets for most of the games, remember there's 16 North American cities that will host the World Cup. Some tickets have gone over $10,000, right? That's obsessive. That's excessive. What I mean by upset, if you have $10,000 in your back pocket for a sporting event, good for you. I mean, you're doing something I'm not. But and then FIFA released a statement saying that they're focused on ensuring fair access to a game for existing but also prospective fans, right? And they're saying there's some tickets were available at $60. Those were long gone. And then the other problem that FIFA has to address is the resale market. And that's another conversation to have. But it is a problem. Some cities have reported some issues with hotels, saying that they would have expected at this stage, we're 29 days away from the World Cup starting, and some cities have yet to at least record or notify increase in hotel accommodations and people not recording or not getting their either Airbnbs or hotel rooms at different rates. So they're not seeing an increment in hotel accommodations and bookings regarding or comparing it to other summers, which is alarming for those markets. I think it'll go up. I think as days go by and people, see what money they have saved to go to the World Cup, that will increase. Maybe I'm just being naive, but it has been an issue for sure.
Well, I'm with you. I think it is going to go up, and I think that part of the reason they'll get the more bookings is I think that these Airbnb hosts and the hotels especially and the stadiums themselves, they're realizing like, man, we actually can't gouge the prices as much as we have been. I'm realistic, right, Carlos. I understand that we're talking about a premier sporting event here, and there's a cost associated with that. It should be maybe twice as much, maybe 3 times as much as a normal ticket. The 5 and 10x thing just doesn't make a lot of sense. And for FIFA to pretend, we want to address the resale market, we want to make it accessible, while also taking a 15% cut of every ticket resold, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth there. You're not actually trying to serve the fan base. And by the way, they're not alone. There's plenty of sports organizations that do this. I wonder if we're ever going to get to the point, though, where we truly price fans out, especially like you just said, the prospective fan, and people just truly do get sick of it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is when you have people who are willing and able to pay $10,000 for your, I don't know, Portugal Colombia match in Miami. How do you explain? Well, if there's someone able and willing to do it, then we'll keep putting it out there. So it is an issue. It is a problem. Again, FIFA President Gianni Infantino saying that World Cup tickets priced at U.S. market rate is naive. It did start that way months ago, but those tickets were sold out within hours of them being out in the market. The tickets for most of the FIFA World Cup group games per Infantino remain or ranging from $380 to $4,105. So anywhere from $400 to $4,000. That is what's happening right now. And they say FIFA says they have a 25% of group state tickets that can be bought for less than $300, which is not that is not an insane price. I understand that. That to me sounds reasonable for a World Cup ticket. If it's under $300, I would ask then Infantino, find me those tickets, because I have yet to see someone at this stage saying, yeah, you know what, I found a ticket for, I don't know, Jordan versus Algeria in San Francisco for under $300. Sure, but I haven't seen it at this point.
Carlos Mauricio Ramirez is our guest here, talking a little World Cup soccer on the Sean O'Connell Show. One thing, all of my complaining and my hand-wringing aside, one thing that we will pay for in the United States is, we'll pay to watch a winner. And if the U.S. men's national team can make a run, those ticket prices, people will pay whatever it is to watch elimination rounds. How realistic is a nice run? I'm not talking about winning the World Cup here, but is there a ceiling in your mind for this men's national team?
Well, it's Group D. It's USA, Paraguay, Australia, and Turkey. That Team USA should advance. I mean, winning the group, I don't know. I hope so. Advancing, sure. I would even say it's mandatory for Team USA to advance within the confines of Group D. Then you have to knockout rounds are really hard to predict. If they win their group, and that's Group D, they would play July 1st in San Francisco against the third team out of either Group B, E, F, I, or G. And now you're just, flipping a coin, right? It could be anyone. I mean, not literally anyone, but let's say Group B. If they're the number one seed out of Group D, Group B is Canada, Bosnia, Qatar, and Switzerland. So it could be USA, Canada. It could be USA, Switzerland. It could be USA, Bosnia. Anyone who comes out of that group in the third spot could be there. Let's go to Group E, which could also be paired there. Well, it's Germany, Curacao, Ivory Coast, or Ecuador. Well, Germany or Ecuador, I think, will win that group, so maybe it's Ivory Coast. Well, it could also be Group F. That means it's the third team from Netherlands, Japan, Sweden, and Tunisia. Well, it could be either Japan or Sweden that comes out of that group on the third spot. Then it could be Group I, and you're seeing a trend here. I'm just giving you names: France, Senegal, Iraq, or Norway. Well, it's either Iraq or Senegal that's third, because France and Norway are going to fight for group supremacy. And then the final one, and please bear with me, it's Group J. That's how I say this World Cup will be. And that could be Argentina, Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. So you're seeing here a trend of teams that are not, world beaters or world thumpers who would face Team USA if Team USA wins Group D. And if they do that, then I'm not going to bore you with the other combinations because they're infinite. They would move to the round of 16. So all in all to say, I think that the floor for Team USA should be at least round of 32, and then I can see them advancing and beating one of those teams, making it to the round of 16, and then all bets are off, right? Because if that happens, then they would face the winner of Group G, and that Group G would be Belgium, Egypt, Iran, or New Zealand. So it could be Team USA against Belgium. All bets are off. So I could see them at least making it to the round of 16, at least.
All right, before I let you go, I want to ask you a little inside baseball question. I do play-by-play myself on combat sports, not on soccer, not yet on football, which is where I'd like to be at some point. But you do English and Spanish play-by-play commentary, and I have a deep admiration for people who are multilingual, and especially in a professional setting, the ability to switch back and forth to do an English game on a Monday, a Spanish game on a Friday, whatever it is. It's a different level. My question for you is one more fun than the other? Because there's a different sound. There's a different formality. There's a different formatics to the way English sports are done and Spanish sports are done and Portuguese and Japanese. Right? There's each language kind of has its own rhythm and its own pace. Is one more fun than the other when you're doing English or Spanish commentary?
That's a great question. I'll put it this way. I know that there's a level of energy and excitement that is not just allowed, but expected of one when you call any sport in Spanish, whether it's football, and I've been the voice of Sunday Night Football for Telemundo. I did it in 2021, leading up to the Bengals and Rams Super Bowl, or whether it's what I'm going to do now here. I'm in Seattle right now. I'm going to call the Seattle Sounders and San Jose game tonight for Apple in Spanish. Whatever the sport, there's not just a license, but an expectation that you should be loud, raucous, boisterous, and demonstrative when you do play-by-play. Not doing it is pretty much anti-cultural. Well, the opposite happens in English. I mean, I can't call a game in English the way I call in Spanish. I'd get fired. No one would be able to handle 90 minutes of soccer the way I do it in Spanish because it's just different. It's culturally different. Fun is different because what I like about English play-by-play is you have these pockets and you have this linguistic licenses and tools that English has that Spanish doesn't. There's a way you can phrase and construct and use certain terminology that Spanish doesn't have, especially in sports like baseball or football. So I would definitely say soccer is way more fun in Spanish, but I would also say sports like football are more fun in English. So I would say it depends on the sport. I would rather call a game or a soccer game in Spanish, but I've also been able to blend or bring in or bleed some of the Spanish calls or energy on the English side. And what I've found is that fans really appreciate it and really like it when you give that energy without going overboard, without going over too much, because that's not accepted or even tolerated because it doesn't. So that's the best. That's a long-winded way of saying that I think both are fun. And I love doing both, and I appreciate your comment, and thank you for that.
Well, I think it's great that you're able to do both, and I like the over-the-top nature of Spanish calls, so I would like that to be integrated more into the English side of things, and it sounds like you're doing it. So we're going to catch some games, and we'll be talking more with Carlos Mauricio Ramirez as the World Cup approaches, and then into football season when he's working on Niners and baseball pre and post game with the Giants and the A's. I can't wait to keep picking your brain, Carlos. Thanks for your time today.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's a pleasure talking to you guys. Love Salt Lake City. Love the market. I was there, like I said, a couple of weeks ago for the RSL game against Portland. It should be a fun game tonight against Houston, a Houston team that beat LAFC pretty badly over the weekend with Ben Olsen doing a great job with those dudes, with Mateus Bogus and company. So if you're out there in Salt Lake and Sandy, go to the game. It's a World Cup year, so Soccer Mania has taken over a beautiful nation. So do it. Support your local team. Wear the gear. I think that RSL has perhaps the most intriguing, promising U.S. soccer talent right now in the league with Bo LaRue from San Jose, and that is Xavier Gozo. So go and watch him. He's a Utah native, so go watch him while you can, because I promise you this kid will not last long in MLS. He has a bright future ahead of him, so you should go out and see him play every time you can.
Well stated. Carlos Mauricio Ramirez, Apple TV MLS for now, and he's doing a lot of different things, so we'll stay up to date on what his latest project is as we check in with him in the near future. All right, the hot lunch is coming next. We'll do it quick because I want to get to Freddie Coleman on time. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. All right, real quick, because Freddie Coleman's going to join us here in a couple of minutes. An important World Cup travel announcement. The Trump administration is suspending a requirement for foreign visitors from certain countries that are often guilty of overstaying their visas. They've instituted a rule where you have to have $15,000 in bonds if you're visiting from one of these countries before you're allowed in to the United States of America, because if you're from places like Algeria, Cape Verde, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Tunisia, there's been a long history of people staying in the country illegally after visas expired. And as part of the illegal immigration crackdown with the Trump administration, they increased the cost of coming into the country. But there's going to be an exemption specifically for the World Cup. So you don't have to pay the $15,000 in bonds as long as you hold a World Cup ticket. Now, some of those tickets are $15,000 anyway, but if you're from a place like Senegal and you want to get in the past, you would have had to have a $15,000 bond. Now you just have to have a World Cup ticket, which this was a major topic of discussion with the U.S. anti-illegal immigration policies. It's supposed to be a global welcoming sort of vibe to the World Cup, and a lot of people are saying that's not exactly what's going on with U.S. borders right now. This, I think, is a step in a direction that makes more sense to be hosting a World Cup. And I'm curious to see how many people are going to buy a World Cup ticket now as an easier way to get in. $15,000 is a lot of dough, especially if you're coming from some of those countries. So a little update there, since we were just talking World Cup soccer with Carlos Mauricio Ramirez. In order to stay on time, that we're going to make that a very brief hot lunch here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Freddie Coleman joins us next, one of the best voices in all of sports radio, and we get to pick his brain for about 25 minutes. That's coming in 3 minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700, 92.1 FM. Welcome to hour number 2 here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Welcome in Freddie Coleman, one of the best voices in all of sports radio, a man you've heard on ESPN radio for 20-plus years now. Most recently, you can catch up with him and Harry Douglas. Freddie Coleman, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Big Sean, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Glad to have you on the show today. There's a lot of different things I want to get into here. If you don't mind, we started the show today talking about as the NFL leaks out its international games ahead of the full schedule release. I'm fascinated by the strategy of expanding internationally for the NFL, of trying to grow the fan base beyond American borders, where, of course, the infrastructure, the background, American football is a quintessentially American thing that does not have a lot of, I guess, local and grassroots growth in other countries. Your thoughts on how well this is going, or just how much it's going to take for the NFL to grow its international fan base to a degree that makes this many games overseas make sense?
Well, the NFL knows what kind of demand is not only here in the United States, Sean, but also overseas. And we've seen time and time again, the NFL likes two things: money and power. And when you make more money, you're going to have a lot of power, especially when you're going into hotbeds that are going to be known for soccer or boxing or baseball. The NFL clearly understands what kind of gravy train that they're on, Sean. And that gravy train does not seem to be running out of track anytime soon. So as much as people don't want to see these international games, and believe me, that's not being the ugly American. You want to see more of American games here. But when that money is out there to be made, that's Yankee capitalism at its finest, courtesy of the National Football League.
You can't argue with that. I mean, it is very much a league that lets the almighty dollar dictate a lot of what they're doing. And they're the best at it in American sport, at least, in gaining those revenues and finding different avenues for those revenues. For the fan bases like my beloved San Francisco 49ers they're seeing not just one, but multiple games overseas.
Yep.
In your mind, is there any risk that you alienate some of your local fans, some of your domestic fans, and I guess try to make up for that with international fans?
Yeah, it's a great question because I'm sure the NFL, the more they probably think about their risk, they look at their bottom line and the almighty dollar, and they're always going to believe that even if you run the risk of alienating fans, Sean, the risk is that those fans are not just going to go away from their football teams, that when their teams play at home, they're going to be there to support them. If one or two people do it, but 100 other people aren't feeling alienated, then the NFL will take those odds anytime, any given year, any given situation. And believe me, if I had my way, I think you can have international games more in the preseason, but then that interrupts getting ready for the regular season. So I don't believe that's a good idea. But they see exactly what kind of foothold they've been able to gain by having international games. And I guarantee you, as much money as we've seen the NFL has made from that, it's probably a lot more. They're probably not being honest about their books involving how much money they're making from their product being going overseas and being international. So, yeah, if you're going to alienate a fan or two, but then you see all that gold going into your pocket, the NFL has shown they're willing to take that risk.
One of my least favorite conversations that happens around the NFL every year is talk about the playing surface. Somebody tears an ACL or an Achilles problem comes up, and players immediately rush to, well, don't have us playing on turf. And as much as I don't like this conversation, I think it's going to be louder this year than it ever has been because the World Cup is coming in and they're giving World Cup soccer players grass in turf NFL stadiums. The NFLPA is like, oh, they can have it, but we can't. How much do you think this is going to aggravate the already aggravating discussion about grass versus turf?
Well, it should aggravate it because I know if I'm a player, it's okay that the NFL doesn't care about you. That doesn't mean that you can't raise your voice because you're only going to be as productive for the NFL as long as you're on the football field. And NFL owners are always going to have an antiquated notion that, well, players will adjust and coaches will adjust. What is it going to be best for our fans? Well, I guarantee you plenty of fans don't want to have these situations or these turf monsters creeping up and then one of your players gets injured and then you're going to need that player to get into the playoffs to be a championship team. As long as they don't believe that there's going to be that kind of cause and effect that's going to harm their product enough where they believe that people are not going to watch football, then they're going to have whatever service they believe is going to be best for them because it's not going to be best for the players. There's not one owner, not one general manager, not one team president that's going out there to play football. And you can express your concerns and put them out there. But as long as people are showing up in numbers, record numbers to watch your product, or showing up in record numbers to see your product in person at football stadiums, no matter what turf is out there, then they believe that the end justifies the means. They know the players are going to be there, how long they're going to be there. The NFL, as an upper management, they don't care about that. If you're out there and the product is there each and every Sunday or Monday night or Friday night or Saturday for their fans, That's the only turf they care about, protecting their turf when it comes to their money and when it comes to their power.
We haven't had a chance to catch up with you since the NFL draft happened, and it was a momentous draft here in Salt Lake City. For the first time ever, the University of Utah had 2 first-rounders. Both of them happened to play the same position, offensive tackles. One guy top 10, Caleb Lomu, snuck into the first round as well. But with respect to the draft, was there a team or a couple of teams that you thought did the best, that utilized their draft capital in a way that's actually going to mean a lot for them this upcoming season?
Well, I'll give you a team off the bat. I thought the New York Giants had a terrific draft because anybody that looked at John Harbaugh, you know that they're going to get the best possible people that were going to help them. And they got an outstanding linebacker, pass rusher, do-it-all guy in Arvell Reese, the 5th pick out of Ohio State. Then they got Francis Manoa, an offensive tackle out of Miami at the 10th pick. And you love when a guy says about their quarterback, Jackson Dart, I will die for you. I thought we were watching Necessary Roughness Part 2 when he said that draft night involving the offensive tackle from Miami. But I love what the Giants were able to do. I like the Cowboys were able to get. You get Caleb Downs at safety. All of a sudden, he's going to be one of your leaders on defense, can make plays at all 3 levels of your defense. And then later on in the first round, you get Malachi Lawrence out of UCF, an edge rusher you need in the division where you got to deal with Jalen Hurts twice a year, Jackson Dart twice a year, and then also Jaden Daniels twice a year from the Washington Commanders. You need those guys coming off the corner 100 miles an hour that can get after the quarterback. I think the best pick that a lot of people did not talk about enough was Kansas City getting Master Delaney out of LSU, a cornerback. They always have been really good, not just finding cornerbacks in the draft, but finding all-pro cornerbacks. They don't want to pay them. That's not what they want to do. But they find those guys on defense, and now Steve Spagnuolo can get back to being a kind of defensive coordinator where you can pressure the quarterback, knowing you got a shutdown corner on the outside. A lot of times I never have winners and losers from the draft. I look at who they're able to draft based on need, and I thought those 3 teams, the Giants and the Cowboys and Kansas City, did a really good job of that.
Freddie Coleman, ESPN Radio, our guest for just another couple minutes here on the Sean O'Connell Show. We're very much a college football market here in Salt Lake City with Utah. BYU is back on the national scene. And, now there's a lot of conversation as college football in that world, the changes accelerate at a breakneck speed. And we've only been in an expanded college football playoff for a short time, but it looks like that's going to grow again. And now the recommendation is going to leapfrog over a 16-team format. And it looks like 24 is the most likely direction that the eventual college football playoff expansion is going to settle on. What do you make of a 24-team playoff, Freddie Coleman?
Well, I guess I'm not surprised, Sean, and here's why. Because I go back to the pandemic in 2020 when so many university athletic officials were getting furloughed and they had to find a way to mix and match that money that was not going to be there from the games that generate that kind of revenue for college football. And I said, okay, I wonder how long it's going to take before they expand the playoff and bring that kind of money back to college football. Well, I got my answer. Not even 10 years later, we're going to have an expanded playoff where they are hell-bent on getting that to 24 teams. I think 16 is the right number, but they're seeing so much of that out there with the big TV contracts that college football has signed with ESPN and ABC and NBC and CBS and Fox Sports and ESPN Plus and Fox Sports 1. All those kind of parameters are out there to bring their product no matter where you are to root for your favorite football team. And with that kind of extra attention and also increased viewership, it's going to bring what? Money to the table, more money to the table. And I wonder how they'd be able to try to recapture lost revenue. They've been able to figure that out, that people want college football playoff and they want to see the playoffs on TV, which means that more is going to be better for them. I think 24 is too much. I think you go to 12 to 16 and you keep it right there. But if the money and the returns come in, and that's going to be there, what have we seen time and time again, Sean? If some is good, more is going to be better, bigger and bigger and better, especially when the power conferences, the SEC and the Big Ten, they want more of that pie than anybody else. And right now, those 2 leagues are ruling college football on and off the football field.
They absolutely are, and we unfortunately have to watch that through the Big 12 lens because that's where our local teams are, at least for now. And, the arms race is not one that Utah and BYU are winning right now. The rush towards greater revenues is not favoring the Big 12 conference right now. And the gap between the haves in the Big 10 and the SEC and the have-nots or the have-lesses continues to grow. Is there any way to close it? besides, getting an invite to the Big Ten or the SEC, or another tear down and restructure to super conferences or something like that? Is there anything that can save the Big 12 and the ACC, and not just the top brands in those conferences, but the rank and file?
Well, I think the Big 12 is more savable because they're a better league, not just in basketball, but also in football and even in baseball. You can make that case that the Big 12 has done a fantastic job, and it looked like this league was going to go by the way of disco and the dinosaur about 4 years ago. They've done a really good job revamping, getting the right kind of partners and the right kind of teams, athletic departments in their league to make them more than solvent. The ACC is a different story because they're not even a terrific basketball conference anymore, and that's been their foundation of any kind of success. I think the Big 12 is more than stable as a conference, that they can have a seat at the big boy table. They're not going to have as many seats and plates compared to the Big Ten and also the SEC, but they're not going to be left behind in the dust because of the kind of quality programs they have in their big money sports, and they're making big money with those programs. Even if it's BYU and Utah kind of feeling lost in that shuffle, I think the more and more the Big 12 keeps having better competition and having those seats and doing well in the College Football Playoff or the NCAA tournament, then they would be hard to ignore. The ACC I worry about a little bit, especially in football, because even if they get one or two teams in, more often than not, they lose in the first round of the NCAA, either tournament in basketball, but definitely in football. The Big 12 at least has teams that can make a run or two and bring more revenue to the league when it comes to College Football Playoff. Yeah, they're not going to be anywhere near the Big Ten or the SEC, but I think it's all said and done. The Big 12 will be more than just fine, more than people want to admit, or more than what people want to even think about regarding a terrific league, no matter what sport that is in the Big 12.
I'm going to ask you an unfair question here before we let you go, Freddie. The World Cup begins in North America, American host cities, a U.S. men's national team that's a question mark on how well they can really do and make a run in this tournament. When we look back a couple of months from now on this World Cup, how are we going to be processing it?
Well, that's a really good question because there's always what I like to call that group of death, where you look at those teams, say to yourself, man, oh, man, I'm glad I'm not in that group. If you look at the United States, they're in the group with Canada, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and also Paraguay. So that's a pretty not easy draw, but easier than other draws that I've been able to see. For example, the Group D draw, Australia, Turkey, Germany, Curacao, good luck with that. The Group F draw, Netherlands, Japan, Ivory Coast, Ecuador, good luck with that. I think the United States having that home field advantage will make a decent run. I think they get to the round of 32, but then they may run into a team like Belgium, who's going to be really good. They may run into a team like the Netherlands, who's really going to be good. I think the most important thing is that we're going to look back to the World Cup of 2026, and it should be what's talked about on the pitch and not outside of the pitch, because too many forces are trying to make sure that they have their attention, their agenda at the expense of the World Cup. Hopefully that will not be the case, that fans won't be compromised, fans won't be exercised, but more importantly, Sean, hopefully the game won't be exercised, because the game is supposed to be the thing, and all that other stuff outside of that needs to stay on the outside and not let that affect on the inside.
Well said, Freddie. We'll be watching closely. We'll be listening to Freddie Coleman. Tell our guy Harry we said hello, and thanks for joining us today.
My pleasure, Sean. Take care and be well, my friend. We'll do it again soon.
That's Freddie Coleman. Really, truly is one of the best in the business on Sports Talk Radio. He did solo work for a very long time. He and Harry Douglas have a great show on ESPN Radio. We're lucky to grab him on a day where, man, Stanley Cup playoffs continue. You can listen to that right here on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Avs versus Wild. That one's coming at 6 p.m. on your home of the Utes. NBA playoff action happening as well. So if you need a place to watch, I'm partial to Big Willie's down at 1717 South Main. And you heard me ask Freddie Coleman about the 24-team college football playoff. We'll get to some of it more in the Daily Dump that's coming up next. But the ACC and the Big 12 are in this situation that we touched on a little bit earlier in the week. They're in a situation right now where you have to strike this almost perfect balance of advocating for yourself, trying to make sure that you're on the right path as a conference. And when I say on the right path, I mean you're surviving first, thriving second, that you're keeping your more influential, more powerful, more financially members. You're trying to keep them happy. I think that's more of a concern in the ACC than it is in the Big 12. I think that when the phone calls come for reorganization, Miami's getting the first calls, North Carolina's getting calls, Clemson maybe, depending on how much Dabo alienates people and how long he keeps that football program hyper relevant in the national landscape of real power and contenders. I think that for the Big 12, you're less in danger of losing the top, 4, 5, 6 teams of your conference to other suitors. But I don't think that's necessarily a good problem to have, because it means that the ACC, which of course is not as good as you are, excuse me, from a depth of talent standpoint, from a depth of conference standpoint in football, and now even in basketball, they just have a brand recognition that you have to try to overcome. Both the Big 12 and the ACC have to play a very unique game in that when rule changes come down from on high, and unfortunately in this case on high is a greedy Big 10, a greedy SEC, they're very close television partners who are probably even more greedy. You have to say, all right, well, I like your idea, but how about we make the idea make a little bit more sense for me? And you really don't have a ton of power or a ton of leverage to try to ensure really anything. I mean, it's not going to be long before somebody in those Big 10 and SEC meetings asks the question, well, how much do we really need an automatic qualifier for the Big 12? Do we really want to guarantee the ACC? Like, I know there's the tradition of college football, and I know this expanded format kept the entire nation engaged, but how much do we really care about those things? Because the Big 10 is now a coast-to-coast conference, and Oregon's going to be a player, and USC's got the sources to be a player, and every now and again, Washington on the West Coast is going to be a major player. And then, of course, in the Big 10, we've got all these, like, Midwestern teams. If we can do something to bolster our Eastern presence, our Eastern time zone presence, if we can make sure that we're getting, if we can somehow find a way to make Rutgers relevant, then we got the Northeast covered. And of course, in the SEC, they go all the way to Middle America now. We got Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC, and we don't really have to worry about television sets or dollars or anything else going anywhere else when it comes to college football in Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, etc. There is going to be a time when the power brokers in those other conferences, in the Big 10 and the SEC, say, how much do we really care about preserving the competitive balance? How much do we really care about the lip service that we are paying to the entire footprint of the Big 12 and of the ACC? If we can just lop off the top of both of those conferences, we don't actually really care, because they don't. What are they going to say to the Orlando market when UCF gets left behind? Nothing. You want to know why? Because they've already got Florida covered. From Tallahassee and the Panhandle all the way down to Miami, who they will have stolen at that point. They say, yeah, all right. So middle of Florida, sorry, Everglades, but you're just going to have to attach your allegiance to one of the other 3 major schools that we've decided are good enough to be at our party. The 2014 college football playoff, which is the proposed expansion that was discussed at ACC meetings. And what did they do? They huddled up. This is the ACC, right? And they're making phone calls. They're having conversations with the SEC. And the SEC is telling them what they want to hear. Yeah, of course, you guys, if we're a 2014 playoff, yes, we will get 6 and 8 teams in, but you guys will get 2 or 3, and that's better for you than 1. And the ACC is probably saying, yeah, but our 1 made a run all the way to the national championship game. Look what Miami did. And the SEC just gets to laugh and say, yeah, we know. Miami's pretty good. Miami's pretty appealing. We got our eye on Miami. You don't want us to take Miami, do you? So how about ACC? How about you support what we are putting forward? How about you get on board with this new model that we've been talking about? So when you hear an ACC conference, and by the way, you will hear it from the Big 12 as well. Now, Brett Yormark is a little bit more cagey. And so Brett Yormark will say 2 months from now at Big 12, just less than 2 months from now, Big 12 Media Days, hey, yeah, you know what? We like the proposal of a 2014 playoff expansion. I can see it being something that makes sense for us if, and he'll say, we want 2 guaranteed or we want 3 guaranteed spots. We want our top teams to have equal representation to these other conferences' top teams. Now, he's going to say these things because he has to say these things. He's going to say these things knowing full well that ultimately the Big 12 and the ACC have to acquiesce to the demands of the Big 10 and the SEC. Because the power dynamic that exists between those conferences and the conference that unfortunately our local university plays in right now is nothing more than altruism from the Big 10 and the SEC that for now, we have decided we like you. And we have decided that you serve a purpose for us. As soon as they decide that that is not the case, they will make the votes, they will make the changes, they will make the phone calls to the television partners, and they will destroy the Big 12 and the ACC. It doesn't serve them to do so right now. So it's not imminent. It's not coming just yet. But someday they will make the decision that it does serve the Big 10 and the SEC to rip down the structure of college football as it is today and to maximize their growth, their footprint, their whatever, their revenue most importantly. And right now, they don't feel a need to because they can say to the ACC and they can say to the Big 12, guys, we want to go to 24 teams in the college football playoff. And what's in it for you is, instead of having 1 team in the college football playoff, we're going to give you 2. And instead of guaranteeing a spot and having a convoluted rule that could have, 2 non-Power 4 teams get automatic qualifying bids like we saw last year, maybe we'll take those away. 24 teams, though, that's what you're going to support. It's political theater. We've seen it in politics for years and years and years, right? You have this candidate that you really love. This, by the way, this has been my entire political experience. You see this guy on the rise, the governor of so-and-so, the representative from where, and you're like, all right. I saw this guy on a news interview. Listen to this podcast. I like this person's principles. Okay. Traditional American values, check. All right, let's go. And then that person, as they climb the ladder in their own political party, is pulled aside by some shadowy, probably nefarious figure, said, hey, we're going to need you to calm down on those things that matter so much to you and are the reason that the Sean O'Connells of the world like your politics. We're going to need you to stop talking about that, and we're going to need you to get on board with our candidate who's above you right now in the pecking order, saying this instead. Okay, support that, and then 4 years from now, it'll be your turn, or 8 years from now, it'll be your turn. And what happens? Invariably, that person or their political advisor or their campaign manager says, yep, okay, this is our stance now. And then you and me sitting back home go, oh, man, this sucks. I thought they had our best interest in mind. I thought that we were like truly cohesive in our thoughts here on how this is going to work. ultimately, all of these schools, all these conferences are going to do what? They're going to serve their own best interests individually, and conference alignment, conference realignment, conference allegiance is going to matter exactly zero. And that will eventually be dictated primarily, not even primarily, solely by the current power players, the commissioners in the Big Ten and the SEC. And when I say the commissioners in the Big Ten and the SEC, I also mean the television networks that are in bed with them. So when their edict is 24 teams, the marching order that comes all the way down, and look, Utah and BYU, they are more powerful than a lot of the teams in the Big 12 conference are. But they're not powerful enough to say, no, you know what, Ohio State, I don't like that idea. Georgia, I don't like that idea. We're not going to go along with that. We're going to die on the hill at 12 or 16. And then the big boys say, all right, well, then we're going to rescind your invite to this party. We've extended you this olive branch with these automatic invites and the revenue associated with them. And that revenue is going to help you. Now, it's going to help us more, but it's also going to help you. And you're trying so hard to keep up with us in these ways. So we're going to dangle this little carrot that gives you an illusion of, hey, maybe we can keep up. You can't. But if you don't go along with our way, you definitely can't. This is going to at least give you hope. This is going to at least keep the gap the same or relatively the same. That's where we're at right now. And the ACC, I'm thankful, actually, that the ACC had their meetings first and that the ACC got that phone call, got that talking to before the Big 12. Just from an optics standpoint, the ACC had to swallow that pill first and say, yeah, we want 24. We support 24. They might very well prefer 16 or 12 or 8. But they're going to tell you the same way that the Big 12 eventually is going to tell you, yep, 24 is the number that makes sense for all of us. Because that's the number the big boys want. And we're living in their world. Got to take a break. We'll get to the daily dump next. Are you superstitious or just a little stitious? Baseball players, you can almost rely on them to be superstitious. Great story from the Pacific Northwest on a baseball superstition. And in this case, it actually worked. We'll tell it next on the Sean O'Connell Show, ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Time for the Daily Dump here on the Sean O'Connell Show. Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. You probably don't have to worry as much right now about heating, although it's a good time for them to come out, check the furnace. Well, you don't need it to be working, clean it, winterize it, summarize it, I should say, shut it down, and, get that beautiful AC fired up. Check the plumbing fixtures, maybe have them installed that new shower head. Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, they can handle it all. Look for the truck with the duck. Go to valleyplumbing.com. Set your appointment right there online. You don't even have to pick up a phone if you don't want to. James, are you regular stitious, superstitious, or little stitious?
I think I would probably say little, but
okay.
I don't know. I don't feel
you're
like
cynic. You're a cynic. You're a cynic with all these. You're like nothing. I don't have to touch the light switch a certain way in order to make sure the house doesn't burn down when I leave. You're not that guy?
Yeah, no, I'm not superstitious, maybe just a little stitious.
Well, I don't know how Cal Raleigh was before, but he might be superstitious now because he was after a incredible red hot year last year, he fell into the worst slump so far in the majors. Cal Raleigh went 38 games hitless or something insane, 38 at bats. In any case, the longest hitless streak in the majors, and he was trying everything, figuring it out. Well, it took the advice of one of Seattle's pitchers. Logan Gilbert told Cal Raleigh, who, of course, battery mate, his catcher, he said, look, man, you want to get rid of this bad juju? You got to wash it off, literally and figuratively. He said, go take a shower wearing your uniform. So after going 0 for 38 in his slump, Cal Raleigh on Tuesday night busted out of it after showering in full uniform with 2 singles in a 10-2 win over the Houston Astros.
Wow.
The shower in full uniform, James. A move that you would use to get yourself out of a slump?
I mean, why not? I mean, do some laundry, get yourself cleaned all at the same time. No, that's it. That's the
Charles Barkley move, right?
Yeah, Charles Barkley. That's right.
You pull the Charles Barkley. You just shower with your uniform on. Come on.
Kick Keller from a league of their own when she's just a little bit too upset with the manager there. Shower in the uniform, cool off.
Here's the thing: baseball, more than any other sport, lends itself to all these weird little things. The quirks of athletes, and every athlete, make no mistake, every athlete has their traditions, their quirks. Some guys are like married to them. Other guys, it's just kind of it's a whoopee. It's a comfort blanket. If you eat the same meal, if you wear the same lucky underwear, whatever. Baseball, more than any other sport, because of the sheer amount of time you have to think about these things. Not only do you have a marathon of a season, you've got 162 games with these guys, and also the nature of baseball is, even while the competition is happening, you can be thinking about everything else. In fact, I think one of the most difficult things about Major League Baseball is the ability to stay focused on the season, on the task at hand. When, I mean, they figured this out a few years ago. What is it like? It's like 8 minutes per game that a position player is actually active in the pursuit of baseball with their at-bats, their base running, their fielding, their defense. In a multiple hour-long game, you're actually only playing baseball. You're actually only baseballing for like 8 to 10 minutes. And that means your mind can wander any kind of place it wants to.
Yeah, John Smoltz likes to bring up the box score, the area codes game in the box score because pitchers only pitch every 5 games, right? Or 4 games probably now. And he likes to bring up on the Fox broadcasts that he does a great job on that they used to look for area codes in the scoreboard. Like that they have that much downtime to play those kind of games, especially pitchers.
Well, so when things aren't going well, right, and you're getting inside your own head in like a hockey game, well, you got to go out the next shift and you're sprinting down the ice and somebody's throwing a puck at your face and you're getting checked into the boards and you're running one down and, there's a one-timer opportunity. The puck is right there, the perfect pass. Let me try and hit I mean, you don't really get to think on things the same way. The pace of baseball, even when you're at bat, right? It's like hyper focus, wind up, pitch. That took all of 5 seconds. Now I'm going to step out of the batter's box. I'm going to reset this thing here, right? You have too much time with your own mind. And if that's something, if you're prone to doubt or to spiraling out of control with negative self-thought, baseball is the worst sport. And I'm not trying to accuse Cal Raleigh of being, mentally fragile or anything. But when you start to go 0 for 2, 0 for 6, 0 for 10, 0 for 15, you can't help but start to get inside your own head. And the way that they convinced him to get out of his head was a shower with the full uniform on. He said even as he was doing it, he was rolling his eyes because he knew it would be a story and everyone was going to make a big deal out of it, but it got him off the slump. Whatever works, baby.
Yeah, it's a great story. I mean, I can understand him being like, I don't want to look like I don't want to look like someone who's crazy superstitious, but I did do this. I mean, hey, it worked.
Okay, so I told you, or maybe I haven't told you yet. Winter Classic tickets are on sale for full season ticket holders today. They're on sale for half season ticket holders tomorrow. They're on sale for the public, the general public, after that. The Winter Classic, of course, is Thursday, December 31st at Rice-Eccles Stadium against the Colorado Avalanche. This is going to be an incredible showcase game. The NHL released the Winter Classic logo. We so far have not gotten any sneak previews of the sweaters and they always do a one-off uniform. I imagine those are going to be incredible. Maybe you get a little bit extra mountain blue. I would not be surprised if Ryan Smith made sure that the uniforms, because the game is being played at the University of Utah, had extra blue on them as a little wink, wink, In any case, tickets are going on sale, and it's first come, first serve. And Cole Bagley's been on this, Mammoth insider over at KSL Sports. Face value is anywhere from $202 to $477 for a Winter Classic game. First of all, James, we were talking about World Cup tickets and kind of the threshold you're willing to pay. This isn't quite World Cup level of unique, but it is an incredibly unique opportunity. So 202 to 477, pretty reasonable in my mind, if we're talking about 477 being like really good tickets,
Yeah, I would agree with that. Certainly not. Anyone who was hoping they could get like a cheaper, a ticket under $200. I mean, certainly not at this point. But we'll see. I'm curious to see if we see something like what we're seeing with the World Cup tickets on the secondary markets, where the closer we get to it, maybe you get some better deals out there. That tends to happen with all kinds of events. I'm wondering just how low these might get. But, I mean, I was talking with Adrian Denny about it. He's like, I've got family that just want to jump on it because you don't want to – you want that peace of mind where I got this ticket that's really hard to get, right? You don't want – even though you – and then maybe you get raked over the coals, comparatively with ticket prices. But at least you're not feeling – like the insecurity of like, oh, it's a couple weeks away and I still haven't got them because I'm still waiting for it to be the price that I want, right?
So interestingly enough, the first resale tickets have already hit the market, and they're apparently roughly triple the price of face value. Cole Bagley's been on this, like I said, talking about, where the first demand is. And you're absolutely right, James. We saw this with the World Cup tickets. You jump on it. If you're the reseller, if you're someone that, got the tickets, and maybe you can buy up to 8 if you're a season ticket holder. You can buy up to 8 tickets for the Winter Classic with your code, with your link. So you probably keep 4 for yourself, and you put the other 4 online, trying to turn a profit, and you're trying to strike while the iron's hot. The market's going to be flooded with those, and we'll see how good the team is next year. But you're probably kid, little league, hockey, and sports fandom, right? He is just a full-on mullet-wearing hockey kid in Boston. And because he loves Utah, because I live here in Utah, and we told him about the Winter Classic, I'm like, dude, we're going. And he's like, yes. So Uncle Sean's got to come through. I can't let that down. So I got to get these things, right? But eventually, people are going to, if the team is as good as they were this year, these tickets are going to stay hot. If you're in a December slump and people in the Colorado Avalanche are anywhere close to as good as they are this year, people are going to be like, geez, I don't know if I want to sit out in the cold and watch that game. So who knows? But right now, the face value is approaching $500. The resale value is over $1,000, as these tickets have just hit the market for the Winter Classic.
Have you bought yours yet with your early access?
I don't. So we have a half season.
Oh, you have
right?
half season. So tomorrow is
full.
Okay.
So I got the email from the Utah Mammoth Winter Classic presale information. You will receive an email Thursday, May 14th at 1 p.m. that will include a link to purchase tickets for the event on Ticketmaster.com. You will have the opportunity to purchase up to 8 tickets. You must use the link provided in the email to access the presale. We will not have access on our end to assist with purchasing inventory. So,
yeah, because that makes sense, because it's an NHL event. It's not a Utah Mammoth event. It's not a University of Utah event, even though it's at Rice-Eccles Stadium. This is the team saying, this is the link the league gave us. We can't help you. It's the league that's in charge of this.
I like this. Please note that tickets will be available on a first-come, first-served basis, and we anticipate high demand for this event.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So 1 o'clock tomorrow, James, we're going to be.
How much do you want? How much are you willing to pledge towards Sean O'Connell's tickets?
And then I'll put on those Meta glasses, and we can all watch the game together. Okay, I'll live stream the game through my glasses.
There it is. We're all at Rice-Eccles Stadium on December 31st for the Winter Classic.
Now, the wild card here that is hilarious and awesome for me is, like, it could be 55 degrees at Rice-Eccles Stadium if next winter is anything like this winter, or it could be just the most miserable experience on New Year's Eve. I feel like New Year's Eve is always crazy foggy. Maybe we get like a eerie sort of muffled sound, hard to see type Winter Classic game. I mean, it could be amazing.
Yeah. The fog might be fun. It won't be fun if you're sitting high enough that you can't see the ice, of course. But like,
it would suck if you spend $400 on a Winter Classic ticket and you're just seeing like vague shapes in the mist. That's not ideal.
Hold on, I thought the obstructed view seating was over now. I thought the renovation was done. Oh, the fog. Yeah, they couldn't renovate that.
The last piece of information I want to give you in the Daily Dump comes from the Twitter account of one of our great contributors, our dear friend Jerem Jordan.
Shout out.
Putting this news, host over on BYU Sports Nation. You hear him here on Red and Blue on the Sean O'Connell show.
Of course. We hate him, but we love him.
Mostly because he's blue. Jaron Hall, 2023 fifth-round pick, for the Minnesota Vikings, Jaron Hall has announced his retirement from football on his Instagram. He played in 3 games for the Vikings in 2023. He got injured. He was on the Seahawks practice squad in 2024. He was with the Birmingham Stallions of the UFL in 2026. And he is retiring from the game of football. Jaron Hall, the first black starting quarterback in BYU history, which is still just an insane thing because we're talking about the 2020s.
Yeah, it was 2021, right? Man.
That's I can't believe that's real.
Yeah.
But
and unfortunately, should I even say this? He broke a streak in the rivalry game. Ugh, don't like saying that. But
yeah, no one likes hearing that.
But big deal in Cougar football history for a couple of reasons there.
Look, you can go check out his statement. It's Jaron Hall 3 on Instagram. Classy kind of exit for Jaron Hall, acknowledging that the run is over and expressing his gratitude for what he was able to do. And yeah, he's a BYU football. You don't want to throw around the word legend too willy-nilly, but he is whatever the level below legend is, like the honorific that is just below legend. I think that's the category he fits into with BYU football because of what you just mentioned, right? He was a milestone type guy. He helped really end a curse that was plaguing BYU football and its fan base in the most aggravating way possible, and starting a streak that now aggravates Utah fans in the worst way possible. And he had a really good career at BYU without winning championships. He had a really good career at BYU, and you reserve legend status for the guys who did achieve championship level or Heisman level or best at their position in the conference, the country type level. But he's just below that. He was really, really darn good and did some important things for BYU football at an important time for BYU football, because I don't want to belabor the point too much here on a Utah station. But if Jaron Hall and that BYU team don't beat Utah, then the gap continues to widen in recruiting in state, even though BYU has the greater resources to commit in the NIL world. You have to be able to tell the kids that you're paying the money to, and also you're going to win, especially the local kids. Like the guys that come from out of state, they don't care about the rivalry enough to make it really matter. But all these guys from Bingham High School and Lehigh High School and Sky Ridge and Brighton, you got to be able to tell them, like, yeah, we're going to beat our rival. We just did. Finally shook that monkey off the back. Money can solve a lot of problems, but it can't solve that particular problem. And Jaron Hall helped do that. Good luck in retirement, Jaron. You think he's one of these guys that we see dipping his toes in the media waters? I think that he'd be pretty successful in that.
Yeah, I could see it. It feels like, you could mention any former player, former coach's name. Like, yeah, I could see that guy doing it. I'd be interesting to see. I wonder if he starts the way that most ex-players and now even a lot of current players do, and then start with the podcast thing. But maybe we see him somewhere else in the local market before the podcast. It'll be interesting to see.
Well, Jerem Jordan is the one who put the news out there on his, and if Jaron Hall is smart and wants to get into media at all, I think that he could probably call somebody like Jerem Jordan and say, hey, could I come sit in and job shadow you a little bit on BYU Sports Nation? Seems like a natural starting point for him if he wanted to do it. Wait, one more piece of information from the NBA draft combine. James, I'll give you $1 if you can guess AJ DeBonce's vertical leap.
45.
Ooh, close. Actually, that would have made him second. Toby Lawal had 45.5-inch vertical,
Dang.
which is just absurd.
Yeah.
Okay. Cameron Carr, 42.5. Amari Allen, 42.5. AJ DeBonsa, 42 inches even, fourth best at the 2026 NBA Draft Combine. So fourth best vertical means he should fall to number 4. He's terrible.
Yeah, don't draft him, Washington. He's terrible. The vertical way too low.
That is just 42-inch vertical is ridiculous. 45 is even more so. All right, we'll double up here. Adrian Denny to start off hour number 3. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
You're listening to the Sean O'Connell Show from the Murdoch Hyundai Studio of ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM.
All right, hour number 3 here on a Wednesday on the Sean O'Connell Show, and we're lucky enough to welcome in our good friend, Mammoth Insider, NHL Insider, host of Mammoth Daily, Adrian Denny. Adrian Denny, welcome back to the show. How are you, sir?
Hey, Sean. Love our weekly visits. Highlight of the week. It's just perfect. Wednesday at 1. Like, is there a better part of the week to get to? And then you're kind of on the downhill swing after we talk, headed towards the weekend.
Literally and metaphorically, Adrian, it's like after I'm done talking to you for the week, the whole week is downhill from there.
That's it.
So
for me too.
You're the peak, and then slide on down into the weekend. All right. So look, the Utah Mammoth are, unfortunately, they're out there watching the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs with the rest of us. But, for players, and I think more importantly for management, for coaches, what is the lens you think they are watching the rest of this Stanley Cup tournament through? Because obviously they want to get back to the playoffs. That's been stated in exit interviews. They want to be part of the second round and the third round moving forward. So when you're watching as a fan, these are great playoffs. When you're watching through the organizational lens, what do you think is coloring that lens most right now?
Yeah, they're definitely watching intently. I know head coach Andre Tourigny usually gets out and about during the playoffs. Right now, the Mammoth aren't in them, obviously. So I'd expect him to be, at a couple spots watching some games. I know our assistant general manager John Ferguson was headed to the Minnesota-Colorado game 1, the last we saw him last week after exit interviews. So, yeah, they're getting out and they're watching games in person, and I think just taking down little notes, just watching these games intently and saying, there's one thing. For instance, the power play, that one thing that we always talk about, that Buffalo-Montreal game last night finishes 3-2. 3 of the 4 goals came on the power play. 11 power play situations in that game as Buffalo gets the series tied up at 2 after Montreal had just won a pair of games by 4 goals. So you look at what can tilt a series. Buffalo changed goaltenders, and it turned out well for him. But yeah, Utah's digesting all of this. You look at some stuff on social media and you see some players out on some golf trips and taking it all in, and maybe some last few days together before they go their separate ways. And we saw Connor McDavid here in Utah vacationing on Instagram, but for the management, it's going all in, watching these playoffs every night, and a lot of DVR time too, because it's going to be something that they'll watch live if they're in person, watch on TV, but definitely going back and diving into them.
Should we start up a conspiracy of sorts with Connor McDavid coming to Utah immediately after a disappointing end to his Edmonton season, and some ideas that maybe he'll eventually want to force his way out of Edmonton? Should we start that rumor now? Should we light a little fire and start blowing on the sparks there?
I'll tell you, OC, 2 years ago at this time, I don't think we're opening up Instagram and seeing NHL players vacationing in Utah, right? In April, right? It's a great spot. There's all the national parks, and southern Utah is great, and up here in the mountains. But have we ever seen that before? I think the word's gotten out, OC, amongst NHLers starting here with the Mammoth that, oh, this is a great place to come. You should come here on vacation. We're going down to check out the national parks when the season ends. You might like it too. And like that's what it struck me as. Just kind of a game of telephone. Guys talking about, oh yeah, did you know you could do this here? Did you know we have that here? And a guy like Connor McDavid, like, oh, we've never been to Utah before. Let's go to Utah. I hear it's great.
Well, we that live here know that is absolutely true. And I guess it's nice to know that, some NHL guys might be touching down on a vacation, and maybe if free agency is impending either immediately or down the line for some of them, they'll have a little seed planted that could grow into something for the Utah Mammoth as a franchise. And we've talked about this already, but it's clear the reputation of the organization has kind of, permeated conversation in the league, where every time an opposing manager, an opposing coach, an opposing player is talking about Utah, like, hey, they got a really good thing going there. Well, now we're in a time where that could manifest itself into success in a very real way if Bill Armstrong and company are looking at a hot free agent market and maybe trying to lure someone here. Now, that there's always cap room conversations and things like that, but there are some, not like mega stars out there available. There are some pretty interesting names in free agency that'll be testing the free agency market this offseason. How big a player do you think the Mammoth are going to be on some of those bigger names?
If you look at the last couple of years, they've made their moves on trades, their big moves on trades, right? Sergachev, Peterka. You can just kind of get a little more creative with the cap and with your roster when you make trades, and they've signed the pieces, the incremental pieces like Kevin Stenlund, Nate Schmidt, Brandon Tanev, Vitek Vanacek in free agency. So looking at that, you wouldn't think that they'd go out and make a huge splash. And number one, that the inventory is the biggest challenge there. There's just not a lot. Utah signing Nick Schmaltz to an 8-year contract, Michael Carcone to a 2-year contract. Logan Cooley was going to be a restricted free agent. Utah went out. They signed their guys before they even get to July 1st. A lot of teams have done that. Columbus just signed Charlie Coyle to a 6-year contract. That was going to be a top free agent because there's just not a lot left. Jason Robertson from Dallas is a restricted free agent. That's probably the biggest name out there with a window that you look at. But OC, it's just all sets up, right? Like the welcome mat is out here. Like when teams are in Utah with a day off and a practice day, we want them down at the Utah Mammoth Ice Center practicing. We want those players to see the facility and be blown away by it. And that's why the visiting locker room at the Delta Center is really, really nice. I know you watch around the playoffs and there's locker rooms like that's seriously an NHL visiting locker room. You hear things about the Carolina visiting room, but it's you talk about the guys coming here on vacations and word of mouth is out. And when you're talking to a place to go work, you're definitely going to talk to your friends that work. They're like, is this good? This good move? Like, yeah. You got to come versus, I've got an interview somewhere else at 2:00. I'll call you back.
The Delta Center, immediately after the season ended, the construction crews get in there, and if you're following Ryan Smith on social media, you're seeing how fast some of those changes are already happening. You've seen the drafts, the mock-ups, the gondola seating. I mean, this arena for basketball and for hockey is going to be a totally unique and totally different experience than what we have seen. And there was some kind of joking conversation about, like, if you make a deep playoff run, that affects the timeline on the reconstruction, et cetera. But how much, have you thrown on a hard hat and walked in there and taken a look at the renovations?
No, I haven't. We moved our offices back to the Zions Bank basketball campus the Saturday after the season ended. OC, it is a construction zone. Team store is open every day, but the broadcasting department is one department that is in the Delta Center for the offices. Is a lot of space has been relocated to the Mammoth Ice Center, and we've got several campuses around, but broadcasting is back at the Zions Bank basketball campus. So we are not in the building. And last year I left after the last game, April 15th, and I wasn't back in until the first preseason game, and was in PPE and a hard hat until opening night. So it is a full construction zone. Our radio engineer Jeremy Potter did call me on Monday, which I thought was really cool because our radio studios are undergoing a renovation as well. That we also have a lot of space with Jazz Radio and production and Mammoth Radio, and he wanted my input. He wanted to hear what I thought, and I just thought, gosh, that's really cool. He's calling me to make sure his plans for the radio studio are going to work for me, which I thought was really nice. But OC, you look at what they're doing in there this summer. They're starting with the north end, the upper bowl, and it's being described as terrace style ledges on that north side. Ryan Smith described it as this is double black diamond level on the north side in the upper bowl, and it is steep, and everybody's going to have a unique view for both basketball and hockey. The 1-goal seats are going to be completely gone by the end of next summer when the south side is completed, but they've added a couple gondolas, one on each side, that'll add a couple hundred extra seats for fans to watch the game, just high atop, looking straight down on the action. So it's going to be awesome. I looking at these pictures and the video that Ryan Smith put out, it just never fails to blow your mind away. And then on the south side next summer, they're going to connect the lower bowl and the upper bowl, and that's going to be another dynamic slope design that brings everything together, but a totally unique view. And so we thought the atmosphere was good for season 2 and season 1, but when you add the experience of the views that all the fans are going to have from every single seat, it's going to be out of this world.
Adrian Denny, our Mammoth insider, our NHL insider, is here with us on the Sean O'Connell Show today, brought to you by Valley Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, and of course our friends at Aladdin Industries, your Utah Velux dealer as well. One thing that's been interesting about these Stanley Cup playoffs for me is, and I talked with Tom Callahan about this earlier in the week, it doesn't seem like there is, as of yet, a goaltender who is kind of taking over, which sometimes you see in Stanley Cup hockey, where a guy will just start to stand on his head, become an absolute wall, and the offense gets a little bit of a break for whatever team that is because nobody can get past your goaltender. It hasn't happened yet. Is it going to happen, or do we not have that level of goaltender remaining with the teams that are still chasing the cup?
The one team that's had it is probably the team that you would least expect it from, and that's the Carolina Hurricanes and Frederik Andersen, right? He wasn't, their planned starting goalie. They signed Brandon Bussey to a contract mid-season after claiming him off of waivers from Florida right after training camp, and he's gone 8-0. Jacob Dobish from Montreal might be the kid to watch. The 24-year-old, he's put in some good action, and he's a fun kid in the media too. It's interesting, OC, because Colorado's gone back and forth on goalies in this series. So has Minnesota. Vegas and Anaheim haven't, but neither's been really spectacular. And Lukas Dostal and Carter Hart, and then you've got Buffalo. They alternated goalies last night. So I think you look at the Eastern Conference, Jacob Dobish and Freddie Andersen as the two. For Colorado, it's always interesting, OC, because they never really have come out and named a starter. Scott Wedgwood started the first, what was it for Colorado, the first 7 games, and then Mackenzie Blackwood came in for game number 4 in Minnesota on Monday night. But those two guys combined for the most wins in the NHL by a goaltending duo this year. So, yeah, gosh, if Freddie Andersen could carry Carolina, that'd be big for him. But that would be something that you're like, oh boy, how long can he keep doing this in the conference finals, into the finals against Colorado? But those would be the two that I'd watch for.
As long as we're talking about goalies, what's the market in free agency going to be for Sergei Bobrovsky? He's not a spring chicken anymore. He's up there in age. Stuart Skinner, I believe, also is out there on the free agent market. He's in his late 20s. So what's the market going to be like for those guys?
Do you think Edmonton tries to go back and get Stuart Skinner after packaging everything to get rid of him and then seeing how things ended up for him? Sergei Bobrovsky, it sounds like, as you listen to insiders and experts and know the way that Florida brings back their guys, you would think that he ends up back in Florida with the Panthers as they look to run it back next year after winning back-to-back cups and missing the playoffs. You haven't heard, his name because I think most people think that he probably signs with Florida again to come back. You talk about Stuart Skinner, Pittsburgh has all the cap money in the world with, an older team, but a younger team. They got a lot of cap space. They can throw anything at him if they like that second half of the year, but they've also got a couple young goalies coming up as well. So you got Peter Mrazek in Anaheim, who's a backup. Vitek Vanacek, obviously, with the Mammoth is an unrestricted free agent. There's not a lot of goalies out there, but I think you hit it with Bobrovsky and Skinner being the top two. And does Pittsburgh, do they go after Skinner, keep him long term, and keep trying to retool that thing as Crosby and Malkin get older?
I think a lot of locals are watching the Anaheim versus Vegas series with piqued interest because, of course, Vegas was the team that eliminated our beloved Mammoth from the playoffs. And that's been an excellent series so far. With the overtime win, did Vegas seize control? We know what the numbers are in playoff hockey for the winner of Game 5. Have you seen anything that makes you think this series could buck that trend?
Gosh, we kind of gave them a lot of flack in the regular season for all the games that they went past regulation in and won in overtime or lost in overtime. But now 3 of their 7 wins in the Stanley Cup playoffs have come in overtime, and they've come in pivotal games. They tied the series at 2 with Utah with the overtime win. They took the 3-2 series lead with the double overtime win. Then last night against Anaheim, they win another game in overtime, and you just kind of keep feeling Vegas like there's that Game 5, 6, potentially 7 feel from them. They just keep getting stronger and stronger as you go along. And OC, it's tough when you lose a game in overtime in the playoffs because that's a game you had. So you essentially have to go win 5 games in a series. Like Utah would have essentially had to win 6 games, 7 games in that series to win 4 games just because they couldn't close those 2 games out in overtime. I have always felt if you win Game 5, you probably win Game 6. It was a sinking feeling, and I didn't feel it when the Mammoth lost to Vegas because I felt they were rolling. But you saw how Vegas came out and tightened the screws down in Game 6. And, Anaheim is just kind of fearless. They're young. They've got some veterans. They don't really get phased. I could see them forcing a Game 7, but I think if you win a Game 5 in overtime, you probably win a Game 6 just because you're that close, and there's the emotional. Now we have to go win 2 games when we had one win to get to 1 win from winning a series.
Does Colorado close it out tonight?
I think so. I kind of got the feeling when it was 2-0, like, okay, Avs are in control here, even though I thought Minnesota would take it because I just couldn't believe what they did to Dallas. They just dismantled the second best team in the NHL in the regular season, didn't allow anything to them. Those games didn't feel close. Colorado had been kind of up and down in the second half, and they kind of went back and forth with LA, even though they swept them. And then they came out and they won the first 2 games, and I thought, okay, this is probably a 6-game series, but they come back with a 3-1 lead, a chance to close it out at home. And I think Minnesota's had the 2 most dominating players in the series in Kirill Kaprizov and Quinn Hughes, but Colorado's just overpowering. They're coming at you like they're their third line, their fourth line, they're getting huge goals. It's not all McKinnon and Marty Necas and Gabe Landeskog and Val Nichushkin. No, it's like guys like Ross Colton on their third line is getting big goals for them. The Avs are pretty well connected, and shame on me for thinking Minnesota was going to go in and do it. I mean, Minnesota was really good in that game 3, and they just couldn't duplicate it in game 4 because they loved that game 3. They're like, this is how we want to play it, and they just couldn't do it. They couldn't power pass Colorado in 2 straight.
Is Carolina's dominance in these first 2 series going to come back to actually hurt them? They're getting rest, but maybe excessive rest?
I don't think so. I think they're the best team in the Eastern Conference. I think they're going to play the winner of Montreal Buffalo, which is yesterday at this time. The series is 2-1, and it felt like 3-1 because the Habs had just won 2 blowout games in a row. But I think by the time, if it's Montreal, they're going to potentially have back-to-back 7-game series. They beat Tampa Bay in 7. This Buffalo series, I mean, it looks ticketed to 7 right now as it's tied 2-2. I think Carolina's got the best team. I think the rest is going to help them. I think they're connected. I don't think that they'll come out and be flat. Carolina, I mean, gosh, they had the best record in the Eastern Conference, but first 50, 60 games of the year, I'm not sure they had the same lineup 2 games in a row. They went through a lot of injuries. They had to call a lot of guys up. And nothing phased them. And then last 10 games of the year, they're playing half of their AHL roster to wrap up the regular season just to get it over with, to get guys rested. So I think Carolina's in a good spot to fly into the Stanley Cup final, because I think the team that they're going to play is going to have come through an emotional series too, to get to that point. What are they going to have emotionally left? And Carolina's going to be fresh, and I think they're better.
Winter Classic tickets go on sale tomorrow for season ticket holders, and then to the public shortly after that. Any thoughts on what the demand is going to look like for the Winter Classic when these things hit the market?
Oh, I think it's going to be one of those things where you got to be in the queue. And I've been in the queue once or twice, OC. I've not been in this situation a lot, but for the 2020 World Series during COVID, me and a buddy both got in the queue on Ticketmaster to get tickets to Game 4 of that, and I ended up getting tickets. He never heard anything from the queue, but that's kind of the impression I get in the queue and hope your number gets called, because I felt really lucky to get those World Series tickets in 2020 when they were selling a quarter of the tickets, 12,000 seats at the new Globe Life Stadium in where the heck is it, Arlington?
Yeah, that's Arlington, right?
Yeah, I think we were in the Arlington suburb of Dallas, but that's what that reminds me of. So if you can get in the queue and go to town.
Well, it's always a great pleasure catching up with you, sir. Again, thank you for giving us some time today and every week. And we're probably just gonna have to maintain this through the summer, in football season, all of it. We'll talk Utes when we get there. Heck with Adrian Denny.
Heck yeah. I'm here. I love it. So love talking to you and being here on ESPN 700. So thanks for having me as always, OC. It's my pleasure. I'm here anytime I can be.
That's Adrian Denny, our Utah Mammoth insider. I'll take a quick one here. I want to jump back into the conversation about an expanded college football playoff. The ACC says 24 teams. That's the way we got to go. Is that really a good idea for the ACC and, of course, for the Big 12, who are Power 4 conferences, but not the powerful of the Power 4 conferences? Lots to get to. It's the Sean O'Connell Show on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. Welcome back to the Sean O'Connell Show. Marching towards the end here on a Wednesday. We've got a Festival of Tees round to give away. Festival of Tees powered by the Utah Golf Association, brought to you by Mountain Home Services. We're giving them free rounds of golf away here on the Sean O'Connell Show and on the Drive with Spence Checketts. So make sure you're listening every day for your chance to win. The free golf today, is at Glendale. So free round to Glendale that I will give you away with a trivia question in our upcoming segment as we close things out. Interesting things, reports emerging from the NBA scouting combine. Multiple reports now that A.J. DeBonce and his camp have actually indicated that their preference would be to remain in the state of Utah. He and his family all live here now. He loves Utah. And that, I think, matters in this draft process as everyone tries to figure out what the pecking order is. 1, 2, 3, 4. Utah Jazz, of course, selecting at number 2. So, of course, all of us here in Utah are going to be talking about that. But now it's becoming a national story that one of the top prospects in the NBA draft has a strong preference, reportedly, to stay in Utah. It's important to note, though, not interested in playing the, hey, I don't want to sign somewhere else type of game. Not interested in doing the Eli Manning type thing, the John Elway thing, at least according to the reports so far. So we'll keep an eye on that. I talked earlier in the show and with Freddie Coleman about the proposal to expand from 12 college football playoff teams to 24. The ACC and their commissioner, Jim Phillips, said, yeah, we want to move to 24. Reports are that the Big Ten and the SEC wants to move to 24. Interestingly enough, the official company line from ESPN, who, of course, is the biggest college football partner and the owner of the rights for the college football playoff broadcasting, has said, we want to stay at 12. So we'll have to figure that out as it progresses, that ESPN doesn't want to continue to share more and more revenue and alter the college football schedule maybe that drastically. From a Utah, BYU, Big 12 perspective, I think an expanded college football playoff, one of the things that isn't talked about yet, because of course, it's all just an idea for now. If you're asking college football players to potentially play 5 playoff games in addition to their 12-game slate, that's an NFL regular season right there. Eventually, there's going to be a player or 2 or 10 or 32 first rounders that say, yeah, I don't think I'm playing 5 playoff games. If you structure your bracket the same way that the FCS has structured its bracket, right? You've got your top 8 seeds, get a first round bye. Everybody else plays a first round game. And then if you're in that first round game, you're potentially playing 5 games on your way to a national championship. Now, the more likely path is that the first round bye gives you an opportunity to skip that first game, but you're still playing 4 playoff games in order to get to a national championship. Collective bargaining is not a thing in college sports. If you are an SEC school and your guy, your best, your starting quarterback, your leading wide receiver, your running back, they're all on multi-million-dollar, quote-unquote, NIL deals, you probably have a little bit less resistance because you're providing, elite-level compensation. They probably still want more. And again, it's something that will have to be put into contracts, just like hey, if you transfer, you got to pay us some money back. There's going to be some buyouts. We're going to have to adjust these things on the fly if the college football playoff continues to expand. If you're a Big 12 team, especially a Big 12 team like BYU, Utah, Texas Tech, maybe Arizona State, that is, hopefully, knock on wood, in the conversation to be in an expanded college football playoff more years than not, Recruits are going to know that. Families are going to know. High school coaches are going to know. Agents, most importantly, are going to know that, all right, BYU, Utah, Texas Tech, ASU, Arizona's pretty good this year. You know what? Let's count on this being a 14-game season. No conference championship game in an expanded model like this. But let's say that the hope is for this coaching staff that you're committing, you're transferring in, your deal is $1 million. Well, do we think that $1 million is enough to play 12 games? Yeah, we do. Do we think $1 million is enough to play 14 games or 15 games for this school? Maybe we're going to change our calculus a little bit. That's just the unfortunate reality of the bigger pie that is being offered with more college football playoff games, more revenue. Everybody wants a piece of it. And I say it's a problem. It's a problem to solve, not a problem that you're just like, oh, we're not going to deal with that. It's a problem that you have to solve. And the way you solve that problem is you do share the revenue. We have seen, though, several schools now starting to pare down their athletic departments. Was it last week? Was it Arkansas that got rid of their tennis programs because they can't keep up? I mean, that's an SEC team. That's an SEC team taking their full share of SEC revenues, which are more robust, more lucrative than anything that the Big 12 is going to be distributing. In fact, we saw that Utah's fiscal year 2025, remember, you're getting a lot of these like a little bit late. Their revenue distributions were like $121 million, if I'm not mistaken. BYU's not even getting a full share yet, and they were $20 million ahead of where Utah was at. This is total athletic department revenue. And those numbers are not what you were seeing from the Big Ten and from the SEC. Now, we didn't get the full story yet on any of this stuff, but the gap is there. And the gap continues to grow, and the gap will continue to grow. And yes, college football playoff money is going to bring in more to the conference, more to conference members, more to the schools that participate in an expanded college football playoff. If you're getting 2 and 3 teams from the Big 12 conference, that means Utah a lot more likely to get in. When it's a one-bid league, like it will be in a 12-team format that ESPN wants to keep, I mean, yeah, do you have a shot at the University of Utah of getting that one bid every single year? Of course, that's the hope. But is it something that you can count on? Are those revenues something that you can pencil into your balance sheet? Absolutely not. Texas Tech, BYU, Arizona State, every once in a while, Houston. I mean, these teams Baylor's going to rear its ugly head every 4 to 6 years. These teams are going to have something to say about it. And even if you do make it to the college football playoff in an expanded format, more money comes in, all good. That's wonderful. More money's going to go out too. Your player's going to ask for a little bit more. And in an ideal world, the pie gets sliced however many times, and the athletic department still is able to serve the pie because there's enough left over. Hey, we got this Spencer Fano. If we want him to stay with us for the entire playoff run, when he's got a first-round grade on him, we better pay him some more. Okay, got to do it. Let's peel off a little extra for him. Great. But it's stuff you have to account for. It's stuff that you have to acknowledge is going to be there for people to discuss, there for people to demand. And in the Big Ten and the SEC, you're more equipped to handle it. In the Big 12 and the ACC, who are being told, hey, this is the model we're going to support now, guys. You want to keep getting invited to the party, you're going to get on board with us saying that this is what the party wants. Just know that this is part and parcel to all of this being a rule change, all of this being put into place. And I don't have a problem with it either way. I really don't. Like, I don't think we need a 2014 bracket, although FCS playoffs are awesome. They really are. You got to reduce your regular season a little bit. You got to start your regular season a little bit earlier. The coach AFCA already said, yes, we want to do that. So go ahead and do it. Go ahead and push this change forward. Go ahead and tell the big bosses, your big partners, your broadcast partners, they know this is what's best for college football. And the fan base is going to get on board. All of us are going to be like, all right, I guess the season starts 2 weeks before school now. I guess I'm going to a Utah football game mid-August, in the hopes that I'm also going to a playoff game in mid-December instead of sitting there waiting, twiddling my thumbs for whatever bowl game comes up next. Folks will get on board if that's what you tell them they've got to do. But there is going to be a cost associated with it, and everyone has to plan for that cost. And the cost is already the biggest problem in college football. So an increased cost, even with increased revenue, an increased cost is a problem you've got to solve. All right, we'll give away a free round of golf courtesy of the Festival of Tees next. We'll do the lacrosse talk with Spence Checketts. It's the Sean O'Connell Show, wrapping up next on ESPN 700 and 92.1 FM. 877-353-0700. The Festival of Teas giving away a free round of golf every day here on the Sean O'Connell Show, every day on the Drive with Spence Checketts as well. Trivia question today is an easy one. We've been talking all week about the Utah Jazz projecting who they're going to pick. A lot of fans around here, myself included, hope that it's AJ DeBonsa, hope that he's available as the NBA scouting combine and the discussions around there start to make headlines here this week. The NBA scouting combine is not nearly as popular a television event as the NFL combine is, but the numbers that come from it are sometimes even more impressive. And we talked about the vertical leaps that were turned in today. Tell me how high AJ DeBonsa jumped on his NBA scouting combine vertical leap. We discussed it a little bit earlier. It's a massive number, especially massive when you compare it to the NFL guys, but still big even in the NBA. 877-353-0700. Free golf to Glendale. If you can tell me how high AJ DeBonsa jumped in his vertical test at these NBA scouting combine. Mountain Home Services and the Utah Golf Association powering our Festival of Teas giveaways. And today it is Glendale. Final segment of the show is brought to you by our friends over at Advanced Window Products, 801-850-9100. Lifetime warranty on their windows. Beautify your home, make your home more energy efficient, add resale value to your home, and do it with the comfort of knowing that the entire process from sales all the way through installation and manufacturing is done by a local company you can trust. Run by the mayor of Sac Lake City, Nate Orchard, and his partner, Jake Weber, Advanced Window Products has been in business for a long time. They took it over several years ago, and they have continued to expand on the incredible product and the incredible business. Advanced Window Products, advancedwindows.com. 801-850-9100 for $2,500 off 10 windows or more. The Drive with Spence Checketts is next. Spence is in our Broadway studios. Spencer, how are you, sir?
Do you ever have one of those mornings where you get up, you look in the mirror, and you're like, what happened? Like my brother has this saying, short days but long years. This morning was one of those mornings where I was getting up, got some exercise, came home, was going to get ready to prep for the show. And I just turned around and looked in the mirror. I'm like, dude, I feel like I've aged like 5 years in the last 1 year. That's the type of day I'm having. Do you ever have days like that?
Every day is like that. I have aged like a banana, Spence.
Every day, he says.
My entire my beard is white like Santa Claus now. Yeah. I'm 42 years old.
You are too young to have because I'm getting to the point where I think I'm about 2 or 3 years away from basically having mostly a white beard. But you're too young for the amount of white that you have, Sean. And I'm talking about your beard, not just in general.
Well, probably both. But yeah, no, it's a sobering reality. The mirror is it becomes an enemy at a certain point of fitness in your life, yes. Not necessarily age, but those two things go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
And it's we're not friends right now, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Just got to get used to it.
Yeah, I'm embracing it. I don't know. Maybe I didn't sleep that well. Maybe it was the bags under the eyes. It hit me pretty hard today. I'm like, dude, you gotta up your skincare routine or something. It's not going well. I have a question for you though, Sean. Ready?
Yeah.
So the NFL has announced they're going to play 9 international games this year.
Yes.
And I often reference this Gallup poll that was released last year that talked about the most popular sports in America and talked about the most popular sports in the world. In America, it is American football by far. It's basketball 2. And for the first time in history, soccer is 3, baseball 4, hockey 5. Internationally, it's soccer 1, basketball 2. And then if I remember correctly, like there's a cricket in there because it's obviously massively popular in like India and there's so many people there. I don't know about you, but every time I watch an NFL game internationally, I don't get the vibe that people are all that into it. Do you think this is a way for Roger Goodell to maybe start the process of trying to sell American football overseas? So at some point, maybe they have teams over there?
Well, we started the show here today as well because I looked at a 9-game slate, 2 games for my San Francisco 49ers that are no longer on domestic soil. And I'm like, okay, I get it, but why so many?
Yeah.
And why to all these different places? Like, the international expansion of the NBA, I imagine for the NFL, it's tantalizing to see what can happen when you have a Chinese market suddenly caring about basketball, and when you have a full European continent market caring about basketball and spending time and money and television broadcast packages and merch and tickets and all that kind of stuff. And I can see why the NFL wants a slice of that, but I'm wondering where the blind spot exists for myself, because they pay too many people too much money for the blind spot to be in the NFL offices. But I'm looking the same way you are, and I'm saying, hold on a minute. Like, is Sao Paulo, Brazil, or Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, really going to end up being a lucrative NFL market for Roger Goodell and his ownership partners? Are we really talking about American football, which has virtually no presence in that nation, catching on? Like, I get it. In Germany, they have some like domestic leagues there on military bases, especially, and things like that. There's a little bit of a foothold for, like, a tiny one, a foothold for American football in Japan. So by all means, go play a Tokyo game if that's what you want to do. When I see some of the choices and some of the, we jokingly went through like the marketing rights that every NFL team has based on their region, based on their global region. It's like, okay, like, for some reason, the NFL decided that the Kansas City Chiefs are the team to sell to New Zealand. What? Why? So nobody grows up playing football. It is a complicated sport to learn. It is a complicated sport to try to get going at the grassroots level because you need the equipment. And the NFL is in such a unique position, in my opinion, Spence, because they can force feed it. They have the money to force feed it in a way that, like, cricket can't do to us here in the United States. If they tried to sell cricket long enough here in the United States, sure, maybe some people will jump on board, but they're not just printing money the way the NFL is. So I'm fascinated to see what the end result is. I don't think it's going to be what Roger Goodell and the NFL want, though.
Yeah, in a way, I look at it through the prism of how long people tried to sell soccer to Americans before it even had a small breakthrough. You know what I mean? I mean, there was a league way back in the day with the New York Cosmos or whatever, and Pele, the greatest of all time, was playing soccer here, and everyone's like, yeah, we're all set here. Good effort, but no thanks.
And that's, by the way, that's in a nation where most of us, our first sport that we play when we're little toddlers is soccer.
Yeah, that's a good
right?
point. Yep. Mm-hmm.
You play soccer and you play t-ball. That's what you sign your kids up for because they're the easiest thing to get started on. And even that took so long for Americans to adopt and to love. And honestly, most Americans still don't adopt and love soccer nearly at the level that the rest of the world does. I just don't know how you sell football, American football, to a nation or to nations or to entire international markets that have never and probably will never have little league football there, college football there, high school football there. That's why we love it so much here. I don't know how you get people to jump on board with zero participation elsewhere.
Yeah, and we do this thing as Americans. We think because we love it, everyone else should love it and will love it. And look, I think American football is the best TV show in all of sports, and I also believe the NFL is the best spectator experience we have. Due respect to college football, it's also awesome in its own right. Its own right. If you've never been to an NFL game, they do an awesome job. Pretty much wherever you go, the NFL consumer experience is incredible. But just because we love it here, I don't know that it's going to be something that people are going to embrace overseas. I suppose if you're Goodell, if you're the NFL, maybe you're just starting to pave a pathway that maybe in a generation from now will finally embrace this sport. But it also took the NBA a long time to carve out a viable international footprint. It really did start in '92 with the Dream Team. But if you go back and look at the scores of that experience, now these games are close and compelling because France is good and Spain is good and even Australia is good. And, the Germans had a run with Dirk, and obviously the Serbian national team is quality as well. You go back to 92, they were beating teams by 1 million because basketball wasn't a global footprint. It took about 15 to 20 years for the rest of the world to kind of catch up and everybody else to completely fall in love with basketball. And then don't ever underestimate the effect of Yao, who basically opened up the doorway to China. Daryl Morey got fired today, by the way, speaking of China. And that opened up a huge global marketplace footprint. Maybe if there's some great, German quarterback that comes over and wins Super Bowls with the Niners or something, maybe football will resonate over there. But I find it an interesting choice. And again, when I first saw the news, my reaction was, well, every time I watch an international NFL game, the fans seem to be sitting on their hands. Maybe that changes with time.
I will die thinking that a reason why basketball caught on the way that it did is because young Spanish, French, Serbian, Croatian kids saw the hype around basketball and said, you know what? I'm going to go play basketball today instead of soccer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pick up a basketball and I'm going to chuck it at this rudimentary hoop, the $500 hoop that somebody in town hung on a wall somewhere. And my belief will always be that's a huge reason why the sport has grown so much, and the same in China and the same everywhere else. I don't know how you make that happen when you need helmets, pads, cleats, goalposts, etc., in order to get that level of adoption in American football.
Yeah.
But the NFL is unique in that they have the money and apparently the bandwidth under Roger Goodell to fake it until they make it. To just we're investing. Show up, do this. I mean, they're running football camps on the African continent. Spence, I've spent a lot of time there. I've been to, I think, 8 different African countries. I have not seen one level of interest or had one decent conversation about American football with any African that I've ever met. It just doesn't have a presence there. Yet the NFL is like, yeah, no, we're going to do this, guys. Let's go. So I think they're forcing it, and maybe they're powerful enough to force it. But the Saudis weren't powerful enough to force golf at $5 billion expense through the LIV experiment. So that's, to me, the most interesting comparison right now with what the NFL is trying to do.
Yeah, the other thing, and then I'll set you loose because I know you got to get to it, but your Niners, they're showing this on SportsCenter. Your Niners are going to travel 42,000 miles this year.
Yeah.
And look, I know you're flying in 5-star hotels in the sky. They're not, Kyle Shanahan isn't in a middle seat in coach. I understand that, but you're also asking a lot of your teams to, show up and perform when you're traveling as much as they are. So look, I don't know, man, maybe in a generation from now, football can kind of do what soccer has done here and not necessarily take over the masses, but carve out a market share where it is viable. We'll see.
We'll hold our breath for it for the next 20 years. Stay tuned for The Drive with Spence Checketts. Thanks for listening to the Sean O'Connell Show. One more from the road this week, and then I'm back on Friday. So hang with us. It's ESPN 700, 92.1 FM.